Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, and today I'll continue my series of conversations about the fall of Afghanistan to Taliban. This is my third video on the same topic, and part of the reason is that it has bothered me, or in so many ways, I have felt strongly in solidarity with the Afghan people and what has befallen them. And obviously, I don't have any solutions to the problem, but I feel it my responsibility as a public intellectual to at least share my thoughts on it and to dispel certain myths and certain things that are being said or talked about, especially in Pakistan, also in India and elsewhere. So today I want to talk about a certain hopeful thing that has emerged from this entire ordeal, and that is that on the Afghan Independence Day, several Afghan cities, including Jalalabad, young people came out in the streets displaying the Afghan national flag as a way of protest. In certain cases, it has been reported that young people have also tried to replace the Taliban flag with the Afghan flag. Now, this is being reported in the international media and on social media, but it isn't being given the kind of significance that I think it deserves. I think this is a rare and potent sign about the future. And my humble opinion and my hope is that the resistance to Taliban this time isn't going to come from Abdur Rashim Dostum. He already ran away and surrendered his own city, or even from the Panjshir Valley, though I have deep respect for Ahmad Shah Massoud and his people. I think the resistance will come from the cities, from the young people, men and women who over 20 years have developed a sense of national identity, a sense of national pride. And they're openly saying that replacing the Afghan flag with the Taliban flag is like replacing the national flag with the party flag. That's how they're seeing it. Now, Taliban, of course, have a lot of power at their disposal, a whole arsenal of weapons, and combined with their psychological and, social brutality, maybe they can put it down. But these acts by these young men and women, they teach us something. And what they teach us is that during these 20 years, things have changed. The young Afghans have developed a sense of civic national identity. And this comes from Clifford Geertz, right? Instead of relying on tribal and ethnic and regional identities, these people believe in Afghanistan as an autonomous nation. And to them, the flag is the symbol of that. And when Taliban replace it with their own white flag, with Arabic inscriptions on it, that to these young people is an act of defilement for Afghanistan. That's a denial of Afghanistan's existence as a nation. Now, as a scholar of internationalism and I don't strongly believe in any kind of confessional or territorial nationalism. But nationalism and having a national identity is a prerequisite for developing a civic state. That's why if you read Fanon, his chapter on nationalism from Wretched of the Earth, that's why he insisted that African nations cannot immediately become Pan-African nations. They must first develop national identities because he saw that as crucial to developing larger solidarities. So this, small gesture by youth. And remember, some of them were killed by Taliban when they were protesting. I see it as a huge sign of where the resistance would come. This is the constituency the Taliban will have to put down, control. And of course, there's another thing that will complicate Taliban's, control over Afghanistan, which they didn't have to encounter during the previous brutal regime. And that is the presence of social media, the smartphones that can record, right, and send images of what is happening, what the Taliban are doing to the whole world. So these are some of my thoughts on this. Let's keep an eye on it. And of course, we cannot physically help these young people. We cannot physically help the women in Afghanistan. But the least we can do is to speak in solidarity with them, right? To pick a side, so to speak, and to not be on the side of the oppressors. Now, there are a few other things that I do want to talk about. I'm part of different discussion forums on WhatsApp and others. And I had mentioned this, there is a sense of glee in Pakistan. Not all of Pakistanis, but in certain circles. And people are seeing it as, oh, the Taliban have defeated the American empire and all. I think these are good stories to be told within the decolonial context. But I have learned that stories work better if they have a factual basis behind it, right? We know that Taliban didn't defeat America. America withdrew, which I see as a betrayal of Afghan people. I am no stooge of any power. Taliban waited until the Americans and the Allies left, and then they basically defeated their own people, which they did before this as well. I've already talked briefly about why the Afghan army buckled down and didn't fight. And that's very easy to understand. I mean, 20 years is not a long enough time to build a national institution in a country with strong regional identities. Afghans have always fought for their own people. The Heratis fought for themselves. The Panjshir Valley fought for itself. The Gilanis fought for the Shia, right? Gulbuddin Hikmatyar fought for the Pashtuns during the Soviet invasion. They had loose coalitions. But their identities were place-based, and they were ethnic identities. It takes a long time to develop national alliances, national allegiance. So despite other problems, administrative and corruption and everything, part of it was that the Afghan national institutions needed more time to develop that kind of sense of responsibility, that they would fight for the nation, right, and take pride in it. I think that is something that needs to be explored further and studied further. But for right now, whatever it's worth, I think as human beings, as Afghanistan's neighbors, our affiliations, our love should be for the people of Afghanistan and not for the Taliban. We know what they are capable of. And here is the thing. If you're a Pakistani and you're running around claiming that Pakistan has won because Taliban have won and Pakistan should support Taliban, keep in mind when you support a brutal regime in your neighboring country, emotionally or materially, what that regime does to its own people, you become party to that. And chances are those people are not going to love you for enabling an oppressive regime. And that's something that, experts of Pakistani foreign policy should keep in mind in their public statements, but in their actual acts, what they do, what happens after this. Also, like on a side note, in Pakistani circles, there is always a lot of whataboutery going on. write this video, if I open it to the comments, they'll be like, what about America did this? You don't resolve these things about whataboutery. You want to hear my views about the American invasion of Afghanistan? They are on record. They were published when that was happening. You want my views on American foreign policy? They are published. They are on record. This video is not about that. This video is about the possibility of a resistance internal to Afghanistan coming from the youth and women whose future, whose lives will be heavily impacted by a regime that sees the world from a 8th century perspective. And this is about speaking in solidarity with them. And the reason I keep insisting on speaking in solidarity is because words matter. The more people that speak for the Afghan people and against Taliban means that Taliban cannot normalize their narrative as an expedient narrative. That we keep pointing out that this is wrong, that they came to power through force. And in any given democracy, that's not how you claim power, okay? You claim power through the power of the vote of the people. People should have the right to choose who governs them, right? And then they have the right to choose whether or not they would like them to continue governing them. I mean, there is no denying the fact that the Afghan government that has been ousted was corrupt. There were people who were corrupt in it. But look, despite that corruption, a lot of development did happen. They did try to build infrastructure. So we have to see both things. How do you have corruption but also see some advancement, some development? Maybe that should be a lesson to Afghan politicians in the future. But overall, these are sad days. These are not days to celebrate. You don't celebrate the oppression of another people. And if you do, then you are on the side of the oppressors, right? And then go and claim that status in the world, but be open about it. Sorry, this has been going too long, right? So, to conclude, my hope is, as a scholar, but also as a human being, that these little signs that we are seeing in the cities, people raising the Afghan flag, trying to replace the Taliban flag, this is something new. And this will increase. And this is where the resistance to Taliban will come. How do we respond to it as an international community? How do we enable these youth to continue their struggle for their own autonomy and freedom within their own nation? Will actually decide who we are as individuals, as nations, as neighbors of Afghanistan. That's all. My love to all the people of Afghanistan and to all of you who take the time to watch these videos. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Take care of each other. And as always, I will see you next time. Until then, peace and love.